But it tells us, here we all have to agree to the recording that's happening. So it tells us that today is the 10th day, is a day that specifically is devoted to Guru Rinpoche, Padma Sambhava, otherwise known as the Lotus Guru, the Indian master accredited with bringing the teachings of the Buddha Dharma from India to Tibet in the 7th, 8th century. So on this very special day that marks the birth of Guru Rinpoche, and on this very special day that also is commemorating the birth of my root guru, Chatra Rinpoche, then it's a real pleasure to be able to connect with all of you and to tell you a little bit about the upcoming course. So wherever you are, assume a comfortable position on your seat. You may still be slightly waking up if it's morning for you. You might be wide awake if you've already had a strong cup of coffee. You might be really sleepy if it's late at night for you. And holding your body with some life energy in the spine so that the channels are aligned. Start bringing your attention back internally into your breathing. Just becoming aware again that you are sustaining yourself through that inhalation and exhalation, taking oxygen in. So that it nourishes every cell in your body. And so we're just going to take a few minutes here now and settle ourselves together. And so bring forth an intention that is your own intention for the next hour and 20 minutes. What you like to receive from this time, what you'd like to offer, the way of being that you'd like to assume with your presence here this morning. My intention is to connect with all of you in a meaningful way about a wonderful, very, very profound and blessing-filled text and teaching that I have the great honor of being able to share with you over the next month. And so with that as an intention, from my side, please bring forth your own. If you've connected to the teachings on bodhicitta, then now would be a good time to uplift your own mind with that intention as well. Simply put, to awaken for the benefit of all beings. And then just let your attention just gently scan your body, head to toe. And slowly start to lengthen your exhalation so that it might be a bit longer than your inhalation. With your mind following it out a little bit longer. And then just vanishing into space around you. Your breath, your mind mixed together as one. Your mind riding on your breath. Your eyes are open. Your spine is as straight as you can have it to still be in a position of comfort for you. Air just naturally comes in through your nostrils and leaves through them as well. In this most basic process of living that we tend to forget is happening. And so give yourself the gift at this moment of not having to focus or think about anything, but just the natural rhythm of your breathing. And let yourself revel in the exhalation, just extending it a tad bit longer than you might ordinarily be doing. Just noticing the quality of your attention. If your mind is a bit jumpy and bouncing here and there, then you might want to make the breathing even a bit deeper into your belly. Lower your gaze a tad bit and extend the exhalation even a little bit more. If you feel a little bit sleepy, you could raise your gaze a little bit and bring a little bit more lift into your spine. Make sure your eyes are wide open. Just imagine right now that there's nothing you need to do, but simply breathe yourself into a state of greater ease and relaxation. And in fact, the breath just does that naturally. And so as you exhale, imagine that any kind of stress or tension that you've been holding in your heart, in your body, in your mind, just goes right out with the exhalation and dissolves, vanishes into thin air. Welcome, people who are just joining us. We're just doing a little bit of sitting meditation practice before we begin today, just to center ourselves, connect together, letting our minds just float on our breath. And so see if you can take 7 breaths, during which time you do focus your attention on the inhalation. It's a gentle focus, and then on the exhalation, writing it out, dissolving as it does. 7 times without being distracted by a single thought. Begin now. Don't hold it too tightly, nor be too loose. That was 7 breaths for me. There were definitely a couple thoughts. So bring your attention now back to being present here. All of us together on Zoom. Thank you. Thank yourself. A little bit of shamatha practice. You could assess, how's the quality of my shamatha meditation? How's the quality of your shamatha meditation? Gary's nodding. Thumbs up. Aaron, thumbs up. All right. I guess if there was a thumb, it's harder to show a thumb down. Maybe the, I would say mine was about right here. It was about right here. In the middle of it, I thought, oh, don't forget to tell people that they can open the chat button, and they're very welcome to use the chat as a place to ask questions as we start this morning. So again, welcome to all of you. I'm so happy to see so many people here this morning. Happy Father's Day. Happy Guru Rinpoche Day. Happy Father's Day to Guru Rinpoche, the great father of our tradition. What I am going to do for approximately the next 45 minutes or so is to share a little bit with you about the text that we're going to be studying and learning together. Those of you who would like to join over the next month. And so primarily, and summer solstice as well, yes, thank you. Primarily, this is an information session for you so that you can have as much information as possible. And of course, there's plenty more that you can research on your own to make a decision as to whether or not this teaching is right for you and whether or not you'd like to join with the group. I think it is important to stay at the beginning that I think once we begin studying this text, we'll go through it fairly systematically over the next 2 years. So we're not going to finish it quickly. It's going to be a 2-year teaching. It covers both the topics of sutra and mantra. And my intention and my wish is to offer it to all of us in such a way that it's really a complete practice in and of itself, so that we actually are doing retreat, a kind of retreat in our daily lives that's connected to the teachings of this text. So we'll be in retreat in the hut of our mind over the month of July. We're going to test that out. We're going to see how that goes. And we can always reassess at the end of it. My great hope is at some point also we can gather together in person next year as we conclude it. So I'm just going to pause right there for the moment and ask you to take a second and use the chat to type in any specific questions that you're bringing to the session so that I can make sure I do have a chance to address them. Anything that you've been thinking about that you'd like to have clarity on in terms of either content or process. Why 2 years? Again, good question. 2 years because there are 13 chapters, and realistically, there's no way that I can, with the schedule that I have right now, teach all of that in 1 year. And I'd like us to go through it fairly slowly. I'm creating it so that we actually are digesting a verse a day during the teaching periods. Yeah. And we will have one more teaching this year from it. Which sect of Buddhism is this teaching based from? Thank you very much for that question, Julia. I'll try to answer that in the presentation that I have prepared this morning. And if I don't, please do let me know. Any other questions that people have? And please go ahead and continue to chat them in as we go along if something comes up for you. So I'm gonna kind of jump in. Yes, great. Yeah, I will try and address this from both those content as well as from how that relates to practice. Chogyam Rinpoche requested for a while that we start another process of study, teaching something, studying something, practicing together. And so we bounced back and forth a couple ideas. I see these questions coming in. Thank you. Yes, I will try and answer these as well. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, great. And so we came to a decision that the text we would embark upon next is this one. It's called Finding Rest in the Nature of Mind. And this is a teaching that comes to us from one of the greatest masters, scholars, and meditators that I've ever encountered in any religious or spiritual tradition. And yes, I'm biased, that's for sure. And I do think that there's quite a lot of logical reasoning that we could apply to demonstrate some veracity to that statement. This is a text that is written by the master known as Longchenpa. Longchenpa for short. And Longchenpa lived in the 14th century from 1308 to 1364. In fact, at this moment, I'm so happy to look at the faces of the people who have their videos on. And I am going to share my screen with you for the moment because I did prepare a little presentation, so it'll make it a bit easier to go through. Let me just, so what you're seeing right on my schedule, right on my screen right here, let me just do this and put this down. Thanks for that, Tracy. This is the cover of the text, and this is a newer translation that's been done, Finding Rest in the Nature of Mind. And this is part of a trilogy, all composed by the same master, Longchenpa. So it's called the Trilogy of Rest. And this is the first volume in that trilogy. And so this is an image of the cover of that text. And so this is what Tracy has just put a link to in the chat. And I do encourage all of you to purchase that book if you'd like to join the course. That is what I will be teaching from And it's an excellent and wonderful translation. So you can see there, Longchenpa. Okay, this is the author. Longchenpa is the author. Longchenpa, in many ways, has a place in the Nyingma tradition of Tibetan Buddhism that is somewhat unparalleled. And one reason for Longchenpa's status in the Nyingma tradition of Tibetan Buddhism is because there simply isn't any other master who has expounded, and I would say more than just expounded, categorized and presented in a systematic way the teachings on the great perfection, Zopa Chempo. So the teachings on the great perfection are widely considered to be the ultimate, the highest presentation, according to the Nyingma lineage, of the wisdom of Buddha. You may have heard of great perfection before. Maybe. Tracy, wondering if you can get that? Can you still be letting people in? Thank you. Cool. You may be a practitioner of the great perfection. It would be hard to make a case that there's somebody who surpassed Longchenpa in the detail, the extensiveness, the clarity, and the incredible subtlety with which that level of teaching is presented. So that being said, studying anything by Longchenpa is to study writings that come from a master with an incredibly high level of realization. And I will share with you that one conversation I had early in the days that I was studying with my root teacher, Chadra Sangye Dorje Rinpoche, around translation work. I said something about translation work that was happening about some writings of this master Longchenpa. And my teacher looked at me and said, how could the exalted realization of Longchenpa be translated? And indeed, it's true. Anyone who has attempted to translate from Tibetan language into English or any other language the writings of Longchenpa necessarily would ask that same question. Am I up to this? Because it's certainly not a question of just translating words. So Longchenpa is the author, and Longchenpa, and I will just share with you a couple what I think are quite interesting details about Longchenpa's life. And to do that does bring us into the question of lineage as a whole. And it's one worth considering. It's one, in some ways, that I find we might easily gloss over. Yes, there's lineage, it's important, but isn't this all just kind of going back to the historical Buddhist Shakyamuni? So if we're studying Buddhism, isn't our lineage just naturally finding itself from Buddha as its source? Yes, it is, I would say, definitely. And there are important transmissions that characterize the way that the teachings of Buddha have been cared for and brought forward through an unbroken continuity of teacher and disciple that imbues the entire stream with great potential and blessed qualities. So what those blessed qualities are, in many ways, I see as what is our responsibility to discover. And the first step in that, I think, is the recognition that for us to come to a text, so it's in a book, words on a paper, written by somebody, has come about through this continuous transmission based on great care, conscientiousness, and devotion that necessarily allows the continuity of these kinds of teachings. So it's extraordinarily fortunate to make a connection with this quality of lineage. The lineage is coming from Longchenpa. And of course, in a general way, yes, the lineages of the many lineages of Buddhism. So as kind of, we could say the father, in many ways, of this lineage, Longchenpa was born in central Tibet, as I've said, at the beginning part of the 14th century. And so what else was happening in the 14th century in the world? Just so we can orient ourselves. Anyone who's a history buff here, I won't single out any scholars that I know are in our midst, but when you think of, okay, 1308, what's happening in the world? What's going on? Any ideas? What's happening in Europe? Fast forward to the COVID pandemic.
The Black Death.
The Black Death, yeah.
And exactly. The beginning of the Renaissance.
Beginning of the Renaissance, exactly. Yep. So millions and millions of people are dying in Europe. And here in the high snowy peaks, snow region of Tibet, top of the world, a boy is born. And the accounts that we have of Longchenpa's birth also are infused with miraculous signs that this was somebody special coming into the world. There's a great compilation of different biographies of Longchenpa, which will also be part of resource materials that you'll get for this course. And I would encourage people to look at that as well. Some of the aspects of Longchenpa's life that I find to be quite interesting are that he was orphaned at a very young age. So when Longchenpa was 9 years old, he lost his mother and he lost his father at age 12. And so that experience, and there's a quotation attributed to him about this, is an experience of saying, okay, here it is. I've studied impermanence as part of the teachings of the Buddha, but it feels real now, being orphaned without father and mother in the world. And this event for Longchenpa then spurred him leaving his homeland to seek refuge in a monastery that was nearby Sami at that time, and requesting ordination and entering into the fold there. We are told through numerous of his life stories that he was a great prodigy as a scholar. And what's interesting to me as well is that despite all of the early signs of his being somebody extraordinarily brilliant, he studied extensively. He studied thoroughly, extensively from many, many different teachers, and completely imbued himself with an understanding of all aspects of the path and of Buddhist philosophy. So his name, Longchen Rabjam. So in some ways, it is a reference to the vastness, this great expanse of his knowledge. And that knowledge came through certainly extensive and prolonged and very diligent effort in studying. So we know that he was a great scholar, and we also know that at a certain point, he left a monastic setting and he went off to find the karmically destined teacher that was going to introduce to him the nature of mind in such a way that he could authentically recognize it and deepen that recognition through practice. And that's exactly what he did. And that's exactly what happened. And he was able to encounter his root guru, Kumaradza. He met his root guru. He received the pith pointing out instructions from his guru. And then he went to study, to meditate. He did do periods of retreat. We are told, of course, before he set off to meet his guru. And yet, once he met Kumaradza, then that really stimulated for him the depth and the awakening of realization that allowed him to compose the kinds of treaties that we have with us today. A very small number from the total that we are told he did compose over the course of his short life. So he only lived for 56 years. And yet he is said to have composed over 300 treaties. Of course, only a fraction of that is still with us today. So one of the stories I wanted to share with all of you about the time that Longchenpa was with his root guru, Kumaradza, and engaging in study is as follows. And so I'm quoting. To encourage detachment from worldly things in the hearts of his students, the awareness holder, Kumaradza, had no fixed home. That spring and summer, while Longchenpa was receiving teachings from Kumaradza, the camp moved 9 times, from one deserted valley to another. Just as he got settled, the time would come to move again, giving Longchenpa no opportunity to attain food or clothing. So exhausted was Longchenpa's body from the penetrating cold and the icy terrain, and so worn his clothing that even the young monks and watchdogs spurned him. In these and other ways, he endured inconceivable hardship for the sake of the Dharma. The next year, Kumaradza and Longchenpa, teacher and student, traveled together to Shampo Glacier. There, the guru gave Longchenpa many empowerments and instructions, and especially the teachings of the unsurpassable secret, the outer, inner, secret, and innermost secret cycles of the Dzogchen approach of clear light, the 4 volumes of profound pith instructions, and the 17 Dzogchen tantras, such as the reverberation of sound tantra, which is the most kingly of all tantras, together with the 119 pith instructions. So under circumstances of great hardship, Longchenpa received all of these extraordinarily profound instructions from his guru, Kumaradsa. And then he went and put them into practice. And by all accounts, was somebody who reached the highest level of realization. And so the inheritance that we receive as followers of this particular lineage, the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism, the writings of Longchenpa, there's a lesson that I find in the way that Longchenpa endured hardship to receive such a transmission. So bringing that kind of to mind, I feel personally quite humbled. I feel sitting in the comfort of a Western home with heat, with air conditioning, with more food than I could possibly eat, with all these wonderful translations of Dzogchen material, all these wonderful texts of Longchenpa that have been carried forward and edited by so many devoted Tibetan scholars. So you can, in fact, it's not difficult to get a hold of Longchenpa's writings in English language, in other languages, and even in Tibetan language today. That was certainly not the case for much of the last 600 years. So there's great fortune that we have. And to use that fortune to explore for us what is blessed about this lineage, I think is the opportunity at hand to study one of Longchenpa's writings. I'm not going to say too much about some of his other writings. I will just say a couple other, for me at least, very interesting qualities that I connect with Longchenpa. And the first of these qualities asks us to go, in fact, even further back into Longchenpa's previous lifetimes. And so that lifetime was one in which this amazing stupa, the Bodhanath stupa, that is located in Kathmandu, in the country of Nepal, was just being built. And so what we know that comes to us from the legend of this stupa is that in previous lifetimes, King Trison Detsen, Guru Rinpoche Padmasambhava, and Khenpo Shantarakshita were there building this stupa as three brothers. And at that time, King Trison Detsen slapped a bee and killed it. Perhaps he didn't mean to kill it, but he hit it and it died. And he made a prayer right then and there for that bee's next lifetime, that the bee would be born in a form to connect with the Dharma. So this is Guru Rinpoche Padmasambhava, in a previous lifetime, made that wish. And, King Trison Detsen made that wish. And later, then, these three brothers were incarnated as King Trison Detsen, Guru Rinpoche, and Khenpo Shantarakshita. And so this is time in the history of the Buddhist transmission from the country of India to Tibet, where Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, whose birthday it is today, was playing a key role in subduing local forces that were preventing the establishment of the Buddha Dharma in a qualified way in Tibet. And this was a period of time in which Guru Rinpoche was also then requested by the king, King Trison Detsen, who was the king of Tibet at this time, to be giving teachings and transmissions. And so during this period, Guru Rinpoche did give teachings, some of the highest teachings, to a small group of disciples gathered there. And at this time, part of the group was King Trison Detsen's daughter, Princess Pematsal. And she was renowned as being an extraordinary young woman who had great faith and capacity to understand the teachings of the Dharma. And so she was included in the small retinue to which Guru Rinpoche was giving some of the pith instructions. And very suddenly, on this occasion, she passed away. She died. She was 8, so we are told. Her father, King Trison Detsen, was absolutely devastated, heartbroken. His daughter suddenly died through a kind of dysentery that just came on all of a sudden. And at that time, Guru Rinpoche and his spiritual companion, the consort Yeshe Sogyal, needed to comfort the king. And in doing so, they gave him some very important advice. Of course, some advice about impermanence and some advice about how he should live his life. And so I'm going to read you a piece of that advice right now. I find it extraordinarily beautiful. And I think given this day, Guru Rinpoche's birthday, it's also auspicious to reflect on some of his key teachings at this important juncture. What Guru Rinpoche, in fact, did after Princess Pematsal passed away was he brought her back to life using his great capacity as a secret mantra master. And he gave her the key Dzogchen instructions. And these teachings that come down to us in a collection called The Heart Essence of the Dakinis, the omniscient Longchenpa, we can say, is truly a custodian of. Because, as we will see, Princess Pematsal later reincarnated as Longchenpa. So Longchenpa, for me, is deeply connected to a lineage of great female practitioners. And as such, in many ways, imbued with the qualities of what I would say really is the divine feminine, the quality of space, of openness, of lightness, the great mother, Prajna Paramita, the source from which all phenomena arise. So after Guru Rinpoche gave the crucial Dzogchen instructions to Princess Pematsal, indeed, her karma was to die at that time, so he couldn't prolong her life, and she did pass away. And in consoling her father, King Trison Detsen, Guru Rinpoche taught, "Your Majesty, great king, listen once more. since samsaric things have no essence, to continue endlessly spinning about brings further and further suffering. So capture the royal stronghold of Dharmakaya as your true homeland and keep to the non-arising Dharmadhatu. As your true dwelling, stay in forest retreats and remote places. As your true retreat, look into the empty and luminous nature of reality. As your true house, remain in mind's original nature. As your true bounty, keep attentive and mindful. As your true treasury, form the resolve of twofold bodhicitta. As your true wealth, keep to the accumulation of merit and wisdom. As your true farming, endeavor in the 10 virtuous practices. As your true fatherhood, embrace all beings with compassion. As your true motherhood, sustain the natural state of emptiness. As your true offspring, practice development and completion stage indivisibly. As your true spouse, train in the experiences of bliss, clarity, and non-conceptuality. As your true companion, rely on the scriptures of the Buddhas. As your true farmland, cultivate unshakable faith. As your true food, eat the non-arising ambrosial nature of reality itself. As your true beverage, drink the nectar of the pith oral instructions. As your true clothing, wear the garments of modesty and decorum. As your true retinue, preserve the dakinis and protectors. As true enjoyment, engage in spiritual practice. As true amusement, look at your own mind. As true diversion or distraction, engage in elaborate spiritual practice. As true spectacles, train in the practices of emanation and absorption development stage. As your truest close friend, keep to the empowerments and samayas. As true prejudice, use the 5 negative emotions to train. As your true jewelry, study and reflect in an unbiased manner. As your true activity, copy the profound scriptures of the Dharma. As your true caller, be generous, unboundedly. As your true pursuit, direct your innermost aim to the Dharma. As your true court chaplain, pay respect to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. As true objects of respect, treat your parents with reverence. As your true object of honor, respect the Vajra master. As your true samaya or sacred commitments, keep your mind free from hypocrisy. As the truest precept, give up all evil. As the truest temple, keep the 3 vows purely. As the truest mandala, look into the unchanging nature of luminosity. As the truest instruction, subdue your own mind. As the true view, look into changeless, empty wakefulness. As the truest meditation, let mind be as it naturally is. As the truest conduct, let the delusion of dualistic fixation collapse. As the truest result, don't seek a fruition that isn't spontaneously present. If you practice in this way, you'll be content in this life, joyful in the next, and soon attain complete enlightenment. So this is what Guru Rinpoche consoled King Trison Detsen at the death of his daughter, Princess Pematsal. Later, Princess Pematsal incarnated as Longchenpa. There were several rebirths in between. So this is one way that I, in particular, and perhaps it's because I am a woman, feel that Longchenpa's connection to that Dakini nature is connected to the great blessedness of the lineage that comes through him. So Longchenpa here. Longchenpa, as we know, in the 14th century, then really brings forward the teachings of the great perfection in a way that is unparalleled to this day. The lineage of practice that comes to us, I should say, one of them, which is really one of the most well-known Nyingma practice treasure lineages that we have. So a collection of practices that were revealed as sacred treasures is described as the Longchen Nyingtik lineage. And this comes to us through the great awareness holder, Jigme Lingpa, who lived in the 18th century and had visions of Longchenpa. And then from those visions and those direct meetings, then compiled into an entire practice cycle, these precious teachings, we can say, that are known as the Longchen Nyingtik. And so this lineage of the Longchen Nyingtik was one that my root guru, Chatrul Sangye Dorje Rinpoche, held and widely propagated. So my first introduction to the teachings of Longchenpa, I received directly from my root teacher, Chatrul Sangye Dorje Rinpoche. And among the many teachings that I did receive from Rinpoche include Longchenpa's treatise, the Chewing Zud, so the treasury of the basic space of phenomena. It's been translated that way. I received other teachings, including the one entitled the Niki Yayik. And so this quintessential heart drop instruction of both practices of Dzogpa Chenpo, Trekchut and Togel. So in terms of my own connection to Longchenpa, to the teachings of Longchenpa, it comes to me primarily that way, and specifically regarding the trilogy of rest, from which the first book, Resting in the Nature of Mind, is the one that we're going to study. This I am receiving, I should say, and am studying under the auspices of Khenpo Namdrol Rinpoche and the teacher, the wonderful Khenpo Tashi Seton, who has been teaching this to a group of us over several years. So finding rest in the nature of mind. This is the text that we are going to begin studying. This is a text that is considered to be foundational. It's a text that is often talked about as really being in the category of Lam Rim, which means that it is laying out the progressive stages of the entire Buddhist path, from the very beginning to the culmination. So to address perhaps a question that you might be having, is it right for me, given where I am on the path? The answer that I would have is that it absolutely is. If you are somebody that thinks, well, I've learned the foundations. I've studied the preliminaries. In fact, I've even done the preliminary practices of the Ngundro and so on. And I'm doing practices related to Vajrayana. So I've already had those preliminary teachings. My response would be, that's even more reason. This is exactly the right text for you. It starts from the 4 thoughts that turn a person's mind towards considering the teachings of Buddha, considering why, how, where, what it means to be a spiritual practitioner in this lineage that comes to us from Shakyamuni Buddha, in the Buddha Dharma. So it takes us from those 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. So these are contemplations. They're fourfold. The first is on what it means to have a free and well-favored human existence. The second is on impermanence. The third is on samsara, what it is, what it isn't. And the fourth is on karma, the law of cause and result. In my teacher's tradition, and I can say for sure the tradition of Sokse Rinpoche and Shöje Rinpoche, as both as great Nyingmapa lamas and teachers, one would spend a month on each of these contemplations in doing a traditional 3-year retreat. 1 month reflecting, what is it to have what is referred to as a precious human rebirth? What does that mean? Do I actually have it? What ways do I think I'm free? How am I free? How am I not free? How do I think I'm not free? So all of these kinds of questions and inquiries are part of that contemplation. So in a traditional 3-year retreat, according to many traditions within the Nyingmapa school, and certainly the Longchen Nyingtik practice tradition, one would spend an entire month contemplating each of those 4. So one would take 4 months just to cover those 4 thoughts. We're going to take 2 weeks. The first block of teaching this text will cover the first 2 chapters. The first 2 chapters address the first 2 of these contemplations. A precious human rebirth and impermanence. And so that is where we will begin. That is the only place to begin. And that is the place, I would say, for us to begin, to continue, and to end again and again and again. And I'll tell you for sure, for myself, every time I come back to these teachings, I learn, I see, I hear many, many new points. And I find ways that I can apply them. And I find ways that I've also blocked out part of the deep truths. That life is limited. This is temporary, all of us here together. This is not going to last. And so, how are we making decisions about what we want to spend our precious time doing? That's essentially the moment at hand, to really take a deeper look at what it is to be endowed with fully functioning faculties, a mind that can think, that can analyze, a heart that can feel, a body that has breath moving in and out of it, and is a support for a mind. Given that, this isn't going to last forever. And that the nature of what this isn't at its essence something that is characterized as being other than suffering. And so that is where Buddha started his own teachings. What is the nature of samsara? Let's really look into it. Yes, there can be temporary happiness. Yes, there are good things that happen. There are happy days. And yet, what does it, in fact, really mean to have a sense of dissatisfaction with samsara? Because without that, it's hard to find the place where we can be fully diligent. It's hard to find the place where we could do what Longchenpa did. Actually just, sleeping and wearing a burlap sack. So the stories tell us. Because there's something that's so important and precious, i.e. the teachings of the Dharma, that other kinds of comforts aren't prioritized. And then the discernment to see that what we choose to do, what we choose to think, what we choose to say, it really matters. There's impact of that. That's karma. And it's functioning all the time. And so we better pay attention to it. So that's where this treatise, that's where this text begins. Those are the first 4 chapters. That's what we will go through this year. And we'll take the first 2 in the next month. So this is a text that is accessible and is for anybody and everybody who's interested in exploring the Buddhist path in a systematic way and feels inspired a little bit, even without knowing a whole lot about this lineage, Longchenpa, and how he talked about it. And the way that he presented it, as you will come to see, should you decide to join, is in beautiful, poetic verse that is evocative, that is infused with his wisdom, understanding. I have been talking continuously. I'm going to take a break and just pause, come back, all of you, and see if there's any questions. I'm going to go back and see if I have missed anything. Yes. Any questions, thoughts, ideas based on what I've said so far?
Yeah. Yes, I was wondering about like time commitments or goals for time commitments so that we can, read diligently and apply the meditation times we should.
Great question, Neil. Thank you for that. Here's my request. Half an hour a day. That's my request to all of you. Half an hour a day. And so what I have prepared is day by day contemplation connected to, it doesn't quite match out one verse one day. So each day you will have one, or it might actually be one verse that is over 2 days with a specific contemplation question that you take with you throughout the day. But my request is a half an hour of dedicated sitting meditation and contemplation. And we'll go over how that can be done. We'll give you some structure and guidelines for exactly what that can look like, how you can structure that within a half-hour period. So that's what I would request of all of you. And the more that you put in, the more that you will receive. If you don't have time one day, maybe you can make the session a little bit longer the next day. That's absolutely fine. Yes, we will record the sessions. And yes, we will absolutely discuss how the teachings apply to our own practice. Depending on how many people are interested in also having a smaller kind of study support group, that will be a possibility for people who would like to be in, say, a study pod. And so you'll have an opportunity to be part of one if you wish. The 30 minutes is a combination of sitting practice and contemplation. Yeah, not sadhana. Yeah, so it's not sadhana practice. It's not, for those of you who may be doing different sadhana practice, visualizing a wisdom deity and so on. It's not that. It will be sitting practice and then using conceptual mind to think about, analyze, use your own logical analysis and contemplate the verses from Longchenpa. I encourage all of you to have a journal in which you can also take notes and reflect. The recordings can be made available to everybody who is in the course, definitely. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, for those people who register for the course at the link that I popped into the chat, after every session, once that session is up on YouTube, it'll take some time to convert it and then load it up onto the internet. Then I'll send an email every evening after the practice is finished, so you can review and go back over and use the teachings and contemplations to enrich your practice.
So my wish is that once we start week after next, that together we kind of imagine that we're doing a retreat. We're doing a kind of contemplative retreat on the first two thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma together as we are still going about our daily life, but that each day there is a teaching of Longchenpa that you carry with you through that day. You start, if you find you want to do your 30 minutes in the evening, that's fine. You can do it anytime you want, but you really bring that teaching with you and think of it in different contexts that you find yourself in during the day. So you don't need to purchase all 3 books of the whole cycle. Okay, there's 3. The second 2 are called Finding Rest in Illusion. Excuse me, the second is Finding Rest in Meditation, Finding Rest in Illusion. We're not going to study these right now. Maybe we will in the future. It would be wonderful. I'd love to study the whole cycle. I have not studied these two yet. So I hope that I will. But we're not going to get to these yet. We're just gonna study the first one. Okay. Can we create a Facebook study group? You absolutely can. I certainly wouldn't stop that. This will be on, we're going to record the sessions on Zoom, and I believe then they'll be made available on YouTube. Is that? Yeah, Tracy says yes. Okay. Okay. So yes, and I see hands up too, and thank you very much. I will, Janet and Tim, and I'm noting that. So why is the first registration listed as 5 weeks? So it's 5 teachings. Okay, so that, the 5th teaching comes after 4 weeks, but it lasts for then the next 2 weeks. The Zoom session will be once a week. It's going to be on Tuesday evenings. And so there'll be 1 teaching a week on Tuesday evenings. Absolutely, you can receive a copy of the prayer. And if you feel that this is a teaching for you, please go ahead and register. And yes, get the book whenever you're ready. Okay, Jody, good question. How many cycles of teachings will there be within the 2 years? This year, there'll be 2. And my guess is that next year, there'll be 3. And we'll finish it next year. Janet Inada.
My questions have to do with practical things, and thank you so much. This is so exciting. It's so wonderful. So it has to do with this particular today being up so someone can look at it and decide to sign up for this teaching. Is that going to be available from today?
I think it's already available on the website. I think the link to register is already live there on the website. So if you want
what I meant is this talk that you're giving today. Is your talk today going to be available for someone to listen to?
Oh, I believe it will be.
It will be. So what happens when we record something on Zoom, it's different than when we record it on YouTube or live stream it on YouTube. We have to take the recording finishes, then we have to let the recording render in the Zoom software. This takes between half an hour and 45 minutes. Then it's available for me to download onto my computer. I download it onto my computer. That takes another few minutes. Then I set it up on YouTube in a private link. That takes another 20 to 25 minutes to upload. Once that's uploaded, then I craft an email to send out to all of you who registered, who did the RSVP today, because that's the only way that I'll be able to know who it is that I need to send the email to. So if you RSVP'd for today's intro session, you will get a link to watch this teaching from Christina via YouTube. Probably, there's a lot going on this afternoon as well. So I probably won't get to that until after Tzolk today, probably around 4 o'clock our time.
Mm-hmm. So we will be able to share that link with anyone that we think that we know that is, I know someone who really wants to see this and wasn't able to come today. So is that the only way then, through getting this link from someone who attended today? That's the way to get it.
Unless the person would like to go to the website and RSVP to this intro session. And then by 4 o'clock today, when I look at the list to see how right before the teaching, there were 53 people on the list. Whoever those people are on that RSVP list, they are going to get an email. So it could be your friends, Janet, who went and RSVP'd and then they got their name on the list and then they'll get that email.
Yes. Thank you.
You're
for
welcome.
clarifying. So exciting.
Tim?
Hi, Christina. Thank you.
Hi.
Can you talk a little bit about the section of the book that we're reading, as well as the course that you're kind of teaching? How much of that is kind of more practical meditation guidelines, like this is what we do with awareness? You mentioned there were 17 tantras that this guy was a master of, and the reverberation of sound. For example, how are we going to talk about meditating on the reverberation of sound, or is this mostly talking about the precious human birth and kind of building up within ourselves concepts like that?
Thanks for that question, Tim. That's a great question. Yeah, and he, you know, the brilliance of Longchenpa is such that there's no limit to what one could learn from a practice point of view, specifically related to the practice of Dzogpa Chenpo, great perfection. In this course, in this text, Longchenpa doesn't give teachings about the great perfection until the very end. So the last couple chapters. So it comes in there, but it's by no stretch of the imagination the kind of detailed presentation of what is found in the Dzogchen Tantras as we find in other of his works, where he really synthesizes the crucial pith points for practice from those. So treaties like the Churing and all of his also auto commentaries on those. So I would say in some ways, no, we're not going to, certainly in the beginning, that's not what the content's going to be, but the entire path is presented. So the teachings of great perfection do come in the later chapters, but not in that level of detail. Nevertheless, the sublimity is there because it's Longchenpa. And I highly encourage anyone who's interested to take on faith the benefit of a progressive approach. There's a whole reason for Lam Rim teaching, so stages of the path. And I think, you know, in Longchenpa's own autobiography, you know, the life stories of so many great masters, all of ours, I would say, including Buddha. There's a progression, right? So when we get to the later chapters, we won't be, new people will not be joining us. We're gonna start. So if you want to continue to study the whole thing, you have to start from the beginning here. We won't let people join us midway through. We're gonna start it here now, and we won't have people coming to join us after we get going. Yeah.
Perfect.
Tim, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think in terms of also Longchenpa's, getting to know Longchenpa, starting here in the Trilogy of Rest is such a great place to start. You know, you can buy the Churing, the Treasury of the Basic Space Phenomenon. You can order it on Amazon. I'll tell you, you know, when I first read it, I mean, I had no idea. I had no idea what it was saying. Just incomprehensible. Still. And now I'm on the third year of, you know, a hour, I mean, teaching of the Churing and Longchenpa's auto commentary. And I studied Longchenpa's treatise, Treasury of the Genuine Meaning, again, given by Khenpo Namdro Rinpoche, incredible translation by Sangye Khandro Mamachunam. Over 6 years, I studied Longchenpa's Dispelling Darkness Throughout the 10 Directions, Chochu Munsel, also over 3 years. And I feel like I've only begun, just begun. So I think this is a great place to begin, and there's no limit. You know, and I think what's oftentimes the texts, the gifts of Longchenpa, certainly in Tibet, you know, they would go on the shrine as an object of devotion, something to really pray to, but to open them and really read them and understand what they're saying wasn't something that most people were able to do. This particular presentation of the path in Sending also is much more accessible than other of Longchenpa's works, and it takes one there. There's also, I should mention, an auto commentary on it, and that is available online. It's all there's a couple different versions of it. Again, that will be included in resources that we share with you for this. So I will certainly be looking at that and making reference sometimes to some of that, but we don't have enough time to really go through that in detail. Great.
Chris, there's one question from Jordan a little further up at 1027 that it might be good to address.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Jordan, that's a great question. And I think you'll know the answer to that when you look deep into your own heart and mind. I encourage you to be part of it with the right intention. The right intention to practice to the best of your capability with faith and devotion, an open attitude and curiosity to learn. Nobody will be monitoring you and keeping track of the half an hour. It has not started. We are starting on the 29th.
And presumably that also includes whether we can attend each week fully and everything. I mean, I know it's sort of a generalized question about our practice overall, how diligent can we be and how much can we give to it, but sometimes, especially in the last year with quarantine and all the opportunity that it actually has provided for more study via Zoom, sometimes it's like, oh God, here's another one. I can't miss this opportunity. It's so precious. And then there's so many different classes and studies that then it feels like, would I be better just focusing diligently on my Nundro, diligently on this? Because it's tough, but you don't want to miss anything.
I know. I know. And so then we start stuffing ourselves with more than we can really digest. This is Ngundro, for sure. The 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma are part of, this is the outer Ngundro. And so my request to everybody would be to bring the best effort that you can to be fully present, given your circumstances. That would be my request. Of course, sometimes something might happen and you would have to miss a session, and that wouldn't be ideal, but the recordings will be there for you. But it would be best if people could try to be present for the sessions. And it's not for me, it's for you. the 30 minutes a day is really for you. And you could combine that as part of your ngundro.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Nancy?
What time is the class?
It's going to be 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time, Tuesday evenings. We're starting on June 29th, and it will go for the next 5 Tuesdays.
And if you cannot make a class, you can watch the recording, right?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Yes. Your computer battery is impermanent. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you do have any more questions, if you're having any problems with registration as well. So Tracy has given the email programs@pmctr.org. And if that's any questions about the program, any questions about registration, those would go to webmaster@pmctr.org. If I got that right, Margot, is that right? Yeah, okay. And please go ahead and let me know if you have any questions as well. I'm happy to answer any offline, and please think about making a commitment and joining us. And on this special Guru Rinpoche Day, I would like to then offer a dedication as we conclude. And my wish and dedication is that all of the powerful positive energy from our intentions to just be here together this morning may create the circumstances for beings everywhere to discover their own true indwelling Buddha nature, and therein find comfort, ease, and awakening. And may all of us be connected as Dharma siblings on the path, supporting each other as mothers, as fathers, as caretakers, with great love, enacting and enabling the wisdom vision of Buddha and all of the great lineage masters coming down to our own gurus, Sokse Rinpoche, Choje Rinpoche, Chatra Rinpoche, Dujum Rinpoche. And may any impurities be completely melted away in stainless recognition of our own true nature, each and every single one of us. Thank you all. Happy Guru Rinpoche Day. Enjoy a feast for and with the Dakinis today. And I will look forward to seeing you next week from Tuesday.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Chris.
See you.
Thank you,
Just
Christina.
one little question. Is Chidrinpoche's soak going to be recorded? So please participate in soak with Chidrinpoche later today.
Excellent. Thank you, Yola. Yes. Great.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much and good to see you.
so much.
Good to see everybody. Looking forward.